Less camera, more you. The original Fuji X100 is the perfect little buddy for any photography enthusiast who wants that reminder that they're choosing a photo-dedicated camera rather than just pulling out their phone. Fuji does such an excellent job at understanding how the photographer wants to feel when they're holding and operating their cameras. I'm not saying they get everything right, but this X100 is damn close to it, at least when it comes to digital cameras. Look, this camera doesn't do anything that others can't. If anything, it's the opposite. But I want to share with you my story and journey with this original Fuji X100 and how I think owning a slower, lesser camera, if you will probably make you a better photographer in the long run. I hold a very close place in my heart for this camera, but I understand that my experience will probably be different than yours. It sparked my love for Fuji. It slowly brought me into this world when I was still a heavy Canon user. You know, heavy because the shit weighs a ton. And I was always happy bringing this little guy around with me whenever I wasn't working. It was fun to create for the sake of creating. I didn't used to do it as much as I do now, and I think it's a very important, if not the most important thing for any working photographer. We have to find and keep the joy of shooting for the sake of shooting. Whatever that is for you. It's not the same for us all, but I doubt that whatever you shoot for your work is the only thing you've ever wanted to shoot. So it's important to get out there and pick the camera that most makes you excited to shoot. For me, for now, it's this Fuji X100. You know those times when your business is doing really well and you feel like you deserve certain things, like a treat even though you totally don't, you're just being an irresponsible 20-year-old? Yeah, well, one of those fun months led me to this awesome camera. Funny enough, it's the same thing that brought me to this guy back here, the Mola Demi, which I know in the grand scheme of things is only a couple $100, but when you're a creative and all you do to make money is create shit for other people, to have more money than you need at any given moment is a blessing in itself. I definitely don't lose sight of that, and I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am today. Much of that just comes from still doing it. Waking up, having a couple coffees, and trying again. And again, and doing that again. I heard a funny quote, I think it was Mike Gibbons' dad, about him being a writer and saying,
"You only work 4 hours a day? Well, you might go home hungry, but at least you won't go home tired."
And I find that pretty hilariously on point, at least for a certain amount of time in this career path. The time that we spend working, where we're actually on the clock, so to speak, is very minimal, even though the work doesn't really stop. I think that it's important for anyone, but especially photographers, to know you can't create anything without having a life to pull from. And this camera, the Fuji X100, and I'm sure the rest of this lineup as well, but this camera lets you live life without worrying about what you're creating. It's a point and shoot. It's a memory maker. It's my partner in crime to every party that I go to with its built-in flash. And it's the perfect provider of, oh shit, I forgot I took these. It fits in your pocket when you're crossing TSA, because your phone's in your hand anyway, and it won't make your cabin selfie look terrible. I don't know what it is about planes, man, but finding flattering light on flights is basically impossible. If you found the trick, let me know. Bring this camera on every adventure, bring it up a mountain, strap it around your back while you're cycling. I can't think of a reason that this camera would ever hinder you. Okay, it doesn't zoom. Maybe don't go birding with it, but I'm sure if you made yourself shoot birds with this camera, you'd come up with some pretty interesting results. I was lucky enough to pet a hummingbird on my balcony once. I'm sure you can get close enough if you're patient. It's never the camera, it's all in the photographer. But I think that this Fuji X100 helps us photographers just be us, and not just be photographers. It's kind of hard to put into words, but that tactile feeling of a slower camera with less focus points and less frames per second, less resolution, all goes hand in hand to giving you a shooting experience that's unmatched with many modern digital cameras. There's a roboticness to shooting at 1.2 with auto eye focus and just creates such a bland and lackluster view of the world, at least in my view. I'm not saying you can't have a blurry background with this thing, and you can get close and creative. It's wide, so everything is pretty much in focus, even wide open, but when you're up close, you can create a good amount of separation from your background. You'll definitely have to make a conscious effort to create that effect using this tool. I'm a sucker for 35mm. I don't know if it's because I never got to own a 35 prime lens, and this is like my closest option, but I just know that every time I shoot with it, what's in frame is exactly what I want to be in frame. You know, it just feels natural. Like 35 is this is 35. And that confidence of knowing exactly what your frame looks like is so much more useful than having interchangeable lenses. Knowing exactly what your frame looks like is so much more useful than having interchangeable lenses. You don't need a zoom. You've got feet. Again, this isn't for work. It's not make or break. This is purposefully limiting yourself to push and expand your creativity. Creativity stems from limitations. I love this camera, and I love that it puts me in these predicaments that I wouldn't otherwise find myself if I had all these lenses and all these flashes at my disposal. But when you have to make do with what this offers you, it forces you to think differently and think creatively, and as a photographer, that's basically just doing homework. I really believe that creativity is a honed skill, a sharpened pencil. No one's born creative. At least I wasn't. But I think even more so, to be creative, you have to understand and know the world around you. You have to analyze and document your environment in order to give your own creative view on it. You can't just be creative. You have to work at it. And the X100 does that process of analyzing and documenting your environment that much more exciting. For me, I love this little thing. And of course, since it's a little unique and not everybody's got one, this all black version is 1 in 500, and that ticks an extra little box of, ooh, look, I'm different. And I hate that I enjoy that, but I do. That's part of the reason why I shoot Fuji professionally. But as a whole, I shoot Fuji professionally because I can create film images with my GW690, social media and web images with their X series cameras, and print ads or billboards with their G series cameras. Obviously, the film camera is a little bit different, but every digital Fuji menu is identical, and the workflow of each of them is identical. So you can very easily swap from one camera to the next without worry, shy of a few remap of like a few buttons on the back. I don't get to shoot with the GFX very often, but when I do, there's no learning curve. It even uses the same tether cable as my X Pro 3. It's literally just a plug and play with a bigger sensor and better dynamic range and bit depth. And 100 megabyte RAW files. Damn, those add up so quick. But yeah, thank you Fuji for giving us that same but yet unique experience across every medium you offer. You're definitely one of those standout camera manufacturers that really put their photographers first and not gatekeep their craftsmanship for certain flagship models. Every Fuji feels professionally made and fun to use. They're toys, and they can still be used as tools. And I like that. It keeps the joy of photographers in mind, whether you're spending $300 on a camera or 10 grand on a camera. I love this little thing, and I love the big guy too. I hope you get to find one, or you have one as well, and that you love it too. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you next week. Peace.